Hey everybody, this is Eric from Justice for Youth, and I want to thank you for your interest in our On Point program and in your interest in becoming a facilitator for us at some of our school sites. Um, by now, you know what the On Point program is. It's a restorative program that we run on campuses that focuses on reconciliatory work as well as building into our youth the 40 developmental assets of success, which is super important for them to become healthy, successful young people. And we want to be a part of that process. So we really love this program. It's actually the heart of our work. So what I'm going to do is, for you who are becoming facilitators, I'm going to just share with you what your first three circles would look like on a campus. When you're first getting introduced to a new group of students, which will happen often at various sites, one of the first things you want to do in your first circle is you want to introduce them to our program. So you need to know the language of our program. And one of the things that I'm going to screen share right now is one of our documents that is actually in our it's actually in our packets that we will be giving them. And that is the document is called On Point Program Description. And it just really shares what it is. It talks about all of our components. For some of the middle school students, they're probably going to get juiced and pumped up about the mentoring and the counseling and the creative arts and the recreation. For some of the older students, they're probably going to get pumped up about the service learning, the mentoring, and the vocational components that we have. It talks about the bridge of our program. What makes us different from every other program is the fact that we actually bridge the gap from the campus work to real relationships in the community. And we do that through our calendars and through our mentor nights. Here it talks about the types of students that are being referred. And sometimes students will be like, well, I'm in none of those. And this is where I really take the opportunity to go deeper and talk about how sometimes students are being referred for social emotional issues. Maybe their parents are going through a divorce. Maybe they're having a difficult time with the area of self-esteem or self-image. Maybe they're just having a run-in with a particular student that they're just not getting along with. So they could be referred for various reasons. These are the ones that are just typically the go-to ones for most of our students. Okay, so yeah, you want to make sure that you're sharing those things as you're introducing our program. You want to review these docs with them. The other doc that's going to be really important to introduce, and it's going to be in their packets, is this document that you're going to start seeing on your screen. It's called a life group contract. Now, this is important because this will guide the way your circles are being ran. And I literally go step by step through this contract in order to get buy-in. And I always use language like, hey, being a part of the On Point circle and group is a privilege. And I always keep reminding students about that, because sometimes they won't want to be in there, or they'll take it for granted, or they'll try to mess up what we got going. And none of that's going to happen. If we got to remove you from the group because you're messing up what we're trying to create, the culture we're trying to create, and you don't see it as a privilege, then maybe this isn't the group for you. We will not sacrifice the group for one student. But basically it says that you will commit to attending all sessions unless absent from school with parent permission and or a teacher requesting you to be back. So this is where I kind of go into the spiel of, man, you got to be committed just as we are committed. We have to be committed to building trust slowly in one another. I tell them, man, I know this is going to be a process, but I'm in it for the long haul. And as long as it takes to build with you, I'm willing. I always share how sometimes it's taken me years to build with certain students of mine. It goes on to talk about how we will guard the things shared by leaving our discussions in the group, and just protecting confidentiality. We pledge to deal with broken commitments within our group, not outside of the group. We'll never put them on Front Street. We'll never embarrass them or oust them outside of our group. We'll deal with broken commitments or broken confidentiality within the group. We pledge to be honest with one another without being mean. I will often tell students, you know what, Sammy, you have a bad attitude. Or I'll say things like, you are a very angry young lady, and I'm being honest with them, but I'm not doing it in a manner that is mean, right? And we commit to not putting other people down in our groups, in our circles. We also pledge to participate in the group by listening and asking questions and not talking over each other or having any crosstalk. Or even we commit to participating by contributing to the conversation. I only allow students the ability to pass a few times. After they pass several times, I eventually pressure them, push them, stretch them to share as much as they can. This one's more for the middle school students. It says, I pledge to keep my hands to myself and respect personal space. The next one says, I pledge to learn and grow well in the group. For some of the kids, they have some serious hangups, and this is that they would pledge to not use drugs or alcohol or participate in gang-related activities, and that they would share with us when they're having difficulty avoiding these kinds of behaviors. And sometimes they're going to break their commitments, and I tell them, you know what, you're high, or man, you smell like alcohol. And you know what, I'm okay. You know, I want you to be honest with me next time, but I still want you to be a part of the group, and I haven't given up on you, right? So those are those moments to be with them. This one says, I will tell my group leader if thinking about certain topics discussed brings up or causes me great pain. So for students who have had great trauma, sometimes we'll be talking about these things and it might trigger something in them. And these are moments where I allow them to pass if needed. The next one's here. And the last one says that I understand it's a privilege to be in the group. Therefore, I pledge to show leadership, respect, academic progress, consistent attendance, and obviously demonstrating positive behavior. That's super important. We would have the students sign those very things, okay? So now hopefully you're seeing my face again. Another thing that we would do in our first circle is we would introduce the value of accompaniment. And all of you know what that is because of our previous videos in our mentor training. And we would also introduce our beliefs. And you know what those beliefs are. Every young person needs to be seen, heard, and believed in. And I would really drive that home. And I take that moment to speak into every single one of their lives, looking them dead in the eye when I'm saying these things. So that's your first circle. Just as a recap, we want to share a little bit of who we are, obviously, in the beginning, right? Tell them our name, tell them where we come from, tell them why we're here. I usually say it's because I'm super passionate about young people and I want to support them. We intro our program. We review documents, 2 of them in particular, a program description and the life contract. And then we introduce the value of accompaniment, and we introduce our set of beliefs, which is every young person needs to be seen, heard, believed in. That's your first circle. That's what it looks like, okay? The next circle, our second circle, is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to review accompaniment. We're going to review our beliefs. And then we're going to begin to introduce them to our calendars, and we would distribute one to every student in our program, a hard copy. But then we would also point them to our social media sites. Our tag, our social media handle is simply @JustUs4Youth, and that's for every site. If they search us on Facebook, it's just us, the number 4 youth. And by connecting to us, they will be able to see calendared events being promoted, and they'll be in touch with our movements, because part of our work is taking these relationships on campus and moving them into real relationships by connecting them to our events and our mentor nights, etc. We will also use this time in our second circle to go deeper in our personal stories. So this is so important. You introduce a little bit about who you are and where you're from and why you're there in the first circle, but now in the second circle, this is where I go into the whole spiel. For me, my story is, I'm here because when I was a youth, I was very troubled. I made a lot of poor mistakes. I broke most of my most important relationships. I burned a lot of bridges. I was filled with anger and hate, and I was a violent young man. And I was pretty much pissing my life away at this age, just as, at your guys' age. And I didn't have nobody, and I see it's so important to be present in young people's lives. And that's why I'm here, right? So I go a little bit deeper, and that takes a little bit more time to share a little bit more in depth, and they start feeling comfortable with you. They find ways to relate with you. The last thing you'll do in your second circle, which will take some time, is you'll ask them and begin to pose a question. And they're going to start seeing the nature of our circles. It's a conversational circle. The circles are meant to engage them, to meet them, to pose questions that will make room for introspection and deep reflection. And then we want to hear them, right? We want to hear their voice. So the questions we will pose in the second circle is, why are you here? And it's two-part. I say, why are you here now? And then I say, why are you here, period? And this initial question helps me get an idea of what kind of kid I'm working with. Does this kid have the ability to think critically? Does he have depth? Um, does he have a hard time communicating his feelings? Is he without purpose? Is he disconnected from some of from the jacket that he has or she has, as to the reason why they might have been referred, right? So why are you here? Why are you here now deals with, I go back to the program description page and I say, these types of kids are ones that are being referred to us on an ongoing basis. Are any of you these things, right? And I allow them to say, well, yeah, I got straight Fs. Or, yeah, man, I probably was referred because a counselor saw me and I've been going through a lot. Or they might say, well, I got busted with drugs and that's why I'm here now, right? That's why they're here now. Some kids may be like, I don't know why I'm here now. So then I always say, man, if you could guess why somebody might have referred you, right? What would you be your best guess? I never let them off the hook, okay? The next question is deeper, and it really already begins to help them begin to think about their life and their future. And it's, why are you here, period? And I always go into this spiel. I say, what is the reason why you breathe? What is the reason for your existence? Why do you wake up every morning? And why does your motor tick? What is your deeper meaning for your life? And you might hear some amazing stories. Like one girl says, well, I know I'm here to help drug addicts because my mom was a drug addict and I know I'm going to be able to help people like that. Other kids will be like, I have no freaking clue. And I tell them that is a valid answer, right? Some of them might say, well, I think it has something to do with this or that. And we say, wow, that's great. We want to help you explore that, right? So we already begin to get a picture of what kinds of kids they are, whether they have a sense of purpose or not, or whether they're in touch with why they're being referred to our programs. So that's your second circle, okay? Now we'll move to your third circle. And what we want to start doing in our third circle is, now we're seeing them more often. This is our third time. We begin to introduce our final component, which really is the rhythm of our program. And that is, we introduce journaling and we pass out journals to every student. And we introduce the fact that we do a lot of art therapy and we model that. So usually I'm bringing like an art piece or some scratch art or some clay art or watercolor or sketchbook that a kid has done. And I begin to talk about the importance of their journals. I tell them to treat their journal as sacred and almost as a textbook for our circles, to bring journals every single time they come in, and that journaling is going to be a huge part of every circle that we lead. We want them to be contemplative, reflective, introspective type young people, right? Also, I talk about the importance of art and how sometimes art allows them to unlock things that they may not be able to communicate. But when you get pen to pad, when you get pencil to paper, when you get watercolor to canvas, when you get different mediums going, like they begin to communicate through the art, right? Another thing we introduce is, usually at this circle, I'm playing music. And I talk about the importance of music and how that's going to be present in our circles. Sometimes we'll even go an entire circle with music playing in the background the entire time. Now, we wrap this third circle up with our theme, which is, we're trying to create an environment for reflection and sharing. And then we will ask the following question in our third circle. And the question is, in your journal, would you list 2 things that you love about yourself? And then would you also list 1 thing that you desire to change about yourself? And really what this does is it helps us begin to see the kids how they see themselves. We begin to see the things that they identify as positive characteristics or attributes that they have. And then we begin to see areas of their life that they need growth. And already we're beginning to like identify potential goals and we're already beginning to provide a little bit of accountability. And that's good, right? So they get that little taste there. And lastly, if we have enough time, in order for you to get more of a clear snapshot of the student, I ask some fun questions. And these questions are the following, and it really helps me focus on their character. And I utilize this time to, at the end, talk about how these groups are always going to come back to character development. So I'll say, like, okay, guys, what would you do if you had $1 million and you had 24 hours to spend it? What would you do? Where would you go? Who would you be with? What would you buy? And then they get all juiced about talking about that. And man, these are moments where I begin to admire kids, because some kids will be like, man, I would give it to my mom. I'd buy a house, all of it. And I'm like, man, all of it? You wouldn't spend any on yourself? And they would say no. Some of them are, I'd go buy a plane, and I'd go, go to, some Miami Heat games, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, man, that's pretty selfish. In my head, I'm saying that, right? So you ask them that question. It allows for a little bit of fantasy. You get to see where their priorities are and their values, whether they're materialistic or not, whether they're really connected to their family or not, whether they feel like they need to kind of fall into society and culture or not, et cetera, et cetera. Another question I ask is to expose their character. I say, if you had a choice to work at a place where you absolutely loved the job, but it was mediocre pay, or you could work at a place where you didn't really like the job, but it was really good pay, where would you choose to work and why, right? So again, that just helps me get a picture of where they're at and what kind of character they have. Another question I ask is, let's say you had a summer job and you found yourself in a situation where your supervisor calls you in, and I'll say, if you told a lie, you knew that you'd be able to keep the job and continue to working through the summer, but you knew if you told the truth, you would definitely lose the job, but maintain your integrity. Which would you do and why? You get a chance to see where they're at. The last one I ask is, and this is if we have time and it kind of is a little bit lighter, I say, man, if you're walking home from school today and you found a wallet with $300 cash in it, what would you do with it if you found it now? And this is where I say, come on, man, this isn't a place where we're going to judge you. We ain't going to make fun of you. We ain't going to clown you. Like, we want you to be honest. What would you do with it? 9 times out of 10, kids are saying, man, I'll spend that and I'll get rid of the ID and get rid of the wallet, but I'll keep the cash, right? So just as a recap, we really want you to feel comfortable in your first 3 circles and give you a little bit of framework to that. In the next videos, we're going to talk about how to use our curriculum. We're going to give you tips on keeping our circles safe, fun, and meaningful. And in the last video, we're going to talk about our affirmation circles, our stretch challenges, and we're going to kind of share with you how we go about that, okay? So look out for our next video, guys.